Welcome, everyone. We are live, and it is Monday, a glorious Monday. It really is. I can hear the little birdies. They're singing outside, and they're so cute. They're little chirp, chirp, chirp. They're cute. Make it make sense. You see, one of the examples I will give you that I've given you before is because people still don't understand that we create our realities. People will say that's not true. They'll argue with you. And I'm to the point where I argue with no one because you cannot argue the principles. They just are there. And so what happens is this example, we all do it. We all have mental conversations. You are walking down the street, you're talking to yourself in your mind, whatever that conversation is. You bring something to memory, like it comes to the forefront. You remember something and you relive it again. That inner conversation is not just a quote unquote random thing. That inner conversation is an impression that is in your brain. It's there. For instance, we have people in our lives that we like, we don't like, we love, whatever. When you think about them, you have a mental conversation with them. You reminisce. You say, oh, I remember when such and such. I remember when we were really good friends, or I remember when, pardon me, I remember when I was in this relationship, blah, 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 blah. And you're going through the memories. Now, the memory didn't just come from nowhere. The memory came because something triggered it. For instance, if you, we have these little ice cream trucks here called Mr. Dickie D Man, the Dickie D ice cream truck. And they play a little tune. And depending where you are, when you hear that tune, you'll come up with a memory that reminds you of that. Good, bad, or indifferent, the memory comes up. And then you decide whether you're going to have ice cream or not from the Dickie D Man. Because you're like, oh, that is so, the word is nostalgic. Oh my God. Mr. Dickie D Man. Listen, it takes me all the way back to my childhood in Barbados when you'd hear the ice cream truck. Dun, 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 dun. That's the tune he played. Dun, 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 dun. And every time I heard that, my head would pop right up from whatever I was doing. And I would make eye contact with my grandfather. Because that meant he was going to give me money to get ice cream. And he would always joke and say, when I ran, the back of my feet would hit the back of my feet, the soles of my feet would hit the back of my head. That's how fast I was running. And he would always tell me that story, that was my thing. And so he would always have, and it was on Sundays, and he would always have money just so he could get that ice cream. Right? So every time I hear the Mr. Dickie D Man, I remember my grandfather and me getting ice cream, and he would always laugh. See the memory? Good, bad, or indifferent. And you have a conversation, and you laugh or you cry, or whatever that memory brings to the surface. It is bringing it to the surface because it is in your brain. It is an image stored in your brain as a memory. Now, if you're walking down the street and you hear whoop, 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 right? You hear the police. That's going to have its own memories. It brings something up to the surface because what it is bringing up is something, an impression that has been left upon you. Whether that was a good interaction, bad interaction, indifferent interaction, doesn't matter. Whatever that was, it brings it to the forefront of your mind. And in that forefront, pardon me, in that forefront, you begin to have a conversation. And as you have that conversation, you go through the gamut of emotions that are associated with it. And as you go through those emotions, you relive it. And you start to have this conversation again. Right? And as you are having that conversation, depending on how many times you have that conversation in a day, that conversation that you're having is showing you where your mood is. And when you can see where your mood is, that determines your type of experience. Because remember, mood and experience are going to match. I read where this person was saying, well, I wasn't asking for that specific thing. We don't ask for specific things per se. It is the type of conversation you're having in your mind's eye, the type of conversation that you're having matches a particular external event. So if you're having an argument in your mind's eye, you're going to have an argument on the outside. Now, the type of argument or the intensity of the argument depends upon the intensity of the conversation you're having in your mind's eye. If you are totally frustrated, totally agitated, or you're really happy, or whatever that is that you're feeling on the inside with that mental conversation that you're having, will determine the level of intensity by which you will experience it. Remember that rhythm always compensates. So if you're having a good belly laugh at a particular memory in your mind's eye, and you do that habitually, meaning that's the mental conversation you have more often than not. You have that conversation 20 times a day in your mind's eye, then that's your habitual mood of the guffaw, the laughter, the total knee slap. It's just totally hilarious to you. And you habitually hang out there in that mood. Well, then you don't have to guess what your encounters will be like. You know what they're like based upon the mental conversation you're having. So if you're jovial, meaning you're happy, go lucky, whatever, and that's where you always go to, well, then those are the types of conversations you will have in the external world with people. Those are the types of interactions. So you don't have to choose a specific one. You choose the one that feels the best to you. And what that feeling implies is the type of external experience you will have. So for instance now, if somebody's really like totally just, makes you wanna, rah. But if that's where you are every day, you get it? If that's where you are every day in your mind's eye, having an argument because something reminded you of whoever, and the argument comes to the surface, you might not necessarily argue with that specific person. You might not have that specific argument. But the level of intensity by which you are arguing in your mind's eye will definitely determine the type of argument you have on the outside and how intense it will be. You know, when you say, ugh, why do these kinds of people find me all the time? Because that is your predominant mood. That's why. It totally is. It's interesting because this may be a little bit gross, but I was saying, if I've got Lil Bit out in the yard and he poops, now I walk with my little wet wipes, and even though it's in the grass, I clean it up anyway. Because you know why? Even if I turn my back and I didn't know that he pooped, I'll know because of the flies. They will, listen, you blink and they're there. You're like, what the? How did you get here? How do you even know? And they show up. I didn't call the flies like per se, oh, flies. No, I didn't have to call them. They are the effect. So they show up because he pooped in the grass. So I clean it up and I go and I toss it out in the garbage bin in the backyard. And the flies go away. As if by magic, they go away. That's the point. The inner mood sends out a beacon, if you will. Burr, 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 burr. It sends out this beacon. And the effect shows up. That beacon is your inner conversation that you are having. If your inner conversation is, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, I'm not really here, oh my God, don't talk to me, don't talk to me. What's the first thing that happens? Somebody says, hey, and they start talking to you. You are trying to shrink or hide in your mind's eye. That's what you're trying to do, thereby calling attention to yourself. Do you see that? It appears as if it's the opposite, where you're saying, don't talk to me, I'm not really here. Like SpongeBob, I'm not really here. I'm just a figment of your imagination, is what he does. But the very fact that you have your attention upon trying to blend in and hide, that's what draws people to you. Not the opposite. You can't ever get the opposite, right? So you see, the inner conversation is the most critical thing. We do it and we know we're doing it, but we don't know that we're doing it. Think about that. We're doing it because we are aware that we're doing it. To an extent, we are aware that we're doing it. We know when we're having a mental conversation. Because every time I tell you a story, sometimes you'll go back in your own mind to find one that matches and say, oh my God, yeah, that happened to me too. Or you say, oh, but that's never happened to me. Because you have to go through the memories to see, oh, well, that one didn't happen to me. So you're having the mental conversation. So to make it make sense, the conversation that you're having is what, oh, oh, incoming. One moment. Good morning, handsome. Good morning. And if you grew up with that, takes you right back. See what I mean? And whatever memory that is attached to for you is what you will bring to the surface. So you see, as we go through our day, certain things, quote unquote, trigger us. And when we hear trigger, sometimes we want to say, oh, that's a bad thing. No. Just pay attention to the fact that something happened that caused you to recall something. Now, the level of intensity with which you recall that incident, it'll do something to you. Okay? And what it does to us is based upon good, bad, or indifferent. It's just based upon what you experienced. A lot of people tell me when they hear the rooster, it takes them back to their childhood and growing up on the farm. If I call my mother now, there's a rooster crowing. If I call her, there's a rooster crowing where she is. She doesn't have chickens. But there's not a moment that goes by that she doesn't hear a rooster. So these memories that come back, they are attached to inner conversations. And the key is to catch yourself as you have an inner conversation. If your inner conversation falls along the lines of arguing, always having to prove yourself in this argument, right? These people never listen to me. I feel like I'm hollering in the wind and it just comes back to me. Nobody ever listens to me. If that is your inner conversation, you will find that if that is the inner conversation you have most of the day, you will find that your interactions are with people who don't really listen to you. Think about this for a moment. It doesn't mean you're looking for an argument. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean you're looking for an argument. But because your predominant mental attitude or inner conversation is arguing, they come to you just like when the chicken poops in the yard. And this is why I walk with those wet wipes, because I don't like flies. As soon as he poops, flies are there. And I'm like, it's not even like 5 seconds. They just show up. So if your predominant mental attitude is remembering an argument and having the argument, you are rehearsing what you're going to tell this person when you see them. You're going to cuss them out. You'll tell them about their mama. And you're in your mind. Nobody knows that you're having that conversation in your head because they can't see it. But you know how you know? Because the flies show up. Somebody comes along and they just quote unquote rub you the wrong way. Because you are having a mental argument. So the test for ourselves is this. I say test because you don't want to judge it. Because when we judge, we make ourselves feel guilty. We feel ashamed. We feel angry. Thereby doing what? Bringing about a mental conversation now. One of inadequacy. One of feeling insignificant. And if that is the predominant mental conversation that you have throughout the day, whenever you encounter someone, they're going to treat you as if You're insignificant. Not because you are insignificant, but because of the conversation you are having in your mind's eye over and over and over again. So the test is this. Catch yourself as you are having a mental conversation. Catch yourself when you're talking to yourself. What is that conversation that you're having? And how many times are you having it? For myself, when I was testing myself with these things, oh, cheapers. I had a plain piece of paper and a little pencil. Every time I had an argument in my head, I'd put a line on the paper. And I put a line on the paper again. And when I got to 6, or however many I would go to, I'd put that line through all of them to say that this is 10. I've had this conversation with myself now 10 times. I didn't keep track as to, was it an hour? Nope, didn't do that. I just paid attention to how many times I had an argument in my head. And then I watched my corresponding experiences on the outside. Did I argue with someone in the flesh? And every time I saw it, I said, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. Oh no. I said, okay. What mental conversation do I want to have instead? And I would just tell myself, well, maybe I want to see carnations or something. Oh, I like carnations. I really do. Those pink carnations are glorious. And they have a very spicy smell to them, and I love them. And I would just smile to myself about those carnations, Just something trivial. Nothing too deep. And wouldn't you know, I would either see carnations or hear somebody talking about carnations, go somewhere and carnations are on sale. But that's all I did. And I said, oh, it was that easy? I said, well, you know what? Maybe that's a one-off. Maybe that's a fluke. Let me do it again. And I would change it from carnations to something else. And notice how it's nothing random or willy-nilly per se. It's something that you do. I like carnations. Well, I like chocolate too. Because it makes me feel good. I love chocolate. It's tasty. And I would go through what my favorite one is. You know? That's what I would hear in my mind's eye. Any kind of commercial for chocolate I'd hear in my head. And wouldn't you know, I'd go somewhere and I was like, oh, I should get this chocolate. The very one I was singing about, oh, I should get that. And I started to have a taste for it. I said, oh, I should get that. Right? See what's happening? This is how you test yourself. Because people don't understand that those things that we have in our minds, those conversations we have in our minds, they don't understand that it's a rehearsal. They don't understand that that's what they're doing. And the whole reasoning behind rehearsing is so you can act it out. That's the purpose of rehearsing. It's the purpose of studying so that you can write a test to remember so you can do it. So to make it make sense, test yourselves on a daily basis. And you not only will begin to see how many times you have a conversation, but you will also see how many times you have that particular type of conversation. You'll begin to see the type of conversation and how frequently you have the conversation and how it makes you feel when you have the conversation in your mind's eye. You'll begin to notice that. And when you begin to notice it, you will also notice the corresponding external experience. You'll notice it. And you will say to yourself, oh my goodness, that seems so weird, but I was just having that conversation. What a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's not confirmation bias either. It is you recognizing your mental attitude that you predominantly walk in and how it matches what you experience on the outside. Now, it goes that way with like cars, because this is just things you're thinking, oh, your favorite car, you see it. Now, go a little deeper. Go a little deeper with it. Oh, but I don't feel very confident. I can't talk to people. I feel so shy. Like oh my God, that scares me. Oh my God, I can't. You see that mental conversation? Now when you get out to the outside world, what happens? You find it difficult to make eye contact with people. People talk to you like, you're thinking to yourself, are they talking to me? Oh my God. No, don't talk to me. You may start to stammer a little bit. But all the while, that insecurity that's running in the background, in that mental conversation, it's hiding in plain sight. You feel insignificant. You don't feel pretty. And you think that everybody is looking at that zit in the middle of your forehead. Oh my God, I'm so ugly today. I'm so this. Why does this always happen to me? See, nobody thinks I'm pretty. And in the back of your mind, that inner conversation is how non-pretty you feel. And then what happens? A corresponding external experience. Somebody will either make fun of you or make you feel insignificant. But did they make you feel insignificant, or did you already are like, see, to the types of conversation and how often you're having that conversation, you will begin to see what is ruling your life from the supposed shadows. And then you'll begin to notice that you change the mental conversation that you're having. If you say, look, I used to argue in my head 30 times in an hour. I'd have an argument. Every hour I would check how many times I argued. And I argued for like 30 times. And that's just 1 hour. Now, in a 4-hour span, oh my God, if you saw how many times I argued, if you saw how many times I argued with myself throughout the day, right? This is what you're watching for yourself. And then you realize that all you have are arguments in the outside world. Why is everybody always picking on me? See it? So now that tells you, in order to change from arguing on the outside, you have to change the inner argument. You can't argue inside your mind and have a peaceful conversation on the outside.